In our previous video on college funding, we discussed the importance of prioritizing one's own financial plan, that is, long-term retirement goals, prior to turning and focusing on funding your child's college education. Now, there's another element to that I'd like to discuss here that honestly, a lot of people don't even know to ask, and is that's kind of a false dichotomy, which is, can I afford to save for my kid's college or not? The reality is when you sit down to actually pay for college, when the time comes, the funding details are a little bit more nuanced than that. So I want to dive into that today and talk about how does college funding actually work. It's not so cut and dry as, I can afford to pay this, therefore they can go to this college. The reality is when it's time for a kid to go off to college, in most cases, there is a portfolio of total college funding that comes from a variety of sources, only one of which includes funding directly from, assets that the parent has saved. So if it's been a few years since you yourself went through school, or maybe you never had to go through this process, just want to give you some basic education, maybe some key Google search terms that you can run and learn more about. By all means, feel free to call our office for a little bit more information on this topic. But I want to give you a term that maybe you haven't heard in a few years, or maybe it's new to you, and that is FAFSA. That is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is really the jumping off point, right? Or the entry point into this portfolio of funding that I mentioned. And so the reality is the students that do have a need, meaning their parents, don't have this nest egg earmarked specifically for college, they'll fill out the FAFSA. Really, the parents will fill it out with their information. And this is what kind of opens up the floodgates to these different sources of college funding. The FAFSA really is this centralized process that is used to determine your eligibility to receive different types of financial aid for your student. And these could include grants, these could include scholarships, loans, or even work-study programs offered through your child's school. So you see there's all these different types of funding sources available to your student beyond just what you've managed to save or what you will have managed to save in your 529 college account, for example, over the years. And so what is the FAFSA? Let's dive into that process. So what you'll do, you'll go online, you fill out the FAFSA in advance of your child attending college, and they're going to ask for your basic information, some demographic information, education information for the adults in your household. This will be income as well as assets available to fund college. They'll also ask real practical things about, how many other students from your household will be in college at the same time as the particular student in question. And so what they're trying to determine through this process is it's called your expected family contribution. Okay? And that is the amount that your family, based on all of these details, would be expected to cover out of pocket, so to speak, or out of your college savings account for that particular term of attendance at the school. And so if you look at that, if you take the cost of attendance at that school and you subtract out the expected family contribution, whatever remaining amount there is what is eligible to receive, certain types of financial aid. Now, there's whole layers of detail that go into this, right? So there's different types of income sources and assets that the FAFSA will give more priority to or more weight that factor into that expected family contribution. And so there is a little bit of strategy that goes into the FAFSA in the years leading up to attendance. And you should know that. By all means, contact us to get more details about that strategy. But what I always just tell clients is remember, it's not as cut and dry as I just have to save all this money or my kid can't go to school. By all means, if you can, do that. And if you can do that and not jeopardize your own financial plan. But don't feel like you're selling yourself short on college attendance, right, for the kid, right? So by all means, save what you can, but there's this other process and there's this other portfolio of funding options available to you, which I don't think a lot of people even realize. So what's your next step? Certainly, one thing that's in your control is you can set up a 529 college savings account. You can start contributing to that. We can help you do that. Okay, but I want you to know and be put at ease is that's not the be all end all. If you've not been able to save up enough by the time your kid goes to school, you can still get them there. Well, so what's your next step? Educate yourself, right? So some people, they don't even start looking into this stuff until it's time for the kid to go to college. So if you're well in advance of that, get started. We've got another video on 529 college savings plans, the basics on that account type, and then go ahead and educate yourself on these topics we've shared here in this video. The FAFSA, look up the expected family contribution, look at these different types of grants and scholarships and loans that will be available when it's time for your kid to go to college. Arm yourself with that information, create a plan, and get started. And by all means, we're happy to help you with that process. Just reach out anytime.